What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me at your next event, entertaining you and the people you love. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. For today, learn with me on What Makes You Smarter. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, coronavirus. All coronavirus, all the time. Only coronavirus. That's what life is all about right now at this moment in time. Coronavirus. It all stems from one thing, the coronavirus. Let's continue with 10 things you need to know today about the coronavirus. For Wednesday, March 18th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, White House backs calls to send checks to all U.S. households. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin told reporters on Tuesday that the Trump administration wants Congress to approve sending checks to most American adults in the next 2 weeks to help them get through the coronavirus crisis. Quote, Americans need cash now, end quote, Mnuchin said. The White House suggested the amount could exceed the $1,000 suggested by Senator Mitt Romney, Republican of Utah. Mnuchin reportedly warned Republican senators unemployment could rise to 20% if the government doesn't step in with massive aid, including tax deferrals for corporations and some individuals. A Democratic plan would provide a series of several checks. Quote, we will need multiple rounds of money for everyone, end quote, said Claudia Sam, a former Federal Reserve economist. Quote, this recession is going to be more severe than the Great Recession, end quote. This is according to the Washington Post and the New York Times. Number 2, Biden sweeps 3 more Democratic primaries. Former Vice President Joe Biden swept Democratic presidential primaries in Florida, Illinois, and Arizona on Tuesday, doubling his delegate lead over Senator Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont. Biden now has 1,132 delegates to Sanders' 817. The gap grew from 154 delegates before polls opened to 315, a nearly insurmountable lead on the path towards the 1,991 delegates needed to win the nomination. Sanders did not address the results in a live stream on his campaign website, focusing instead on the coronavirus pandemic. Biden, in a live stream from his home, made an appeal to Sanders voters. Quote, Senator Sanders and his supporters have brought a remarkable passion and tenacity to all of these issues, and together they have shifted the fundamental conversation in this country, end quote, Biden said. Quote, I hear you, end quote. This is according to NBC News. Number 3, West Virginia case means coronavirus now in all 50 states. West Virginia on Tuesday reported its first coronavirus infection, meaning that the outbreak has now spread to all 50 states and Washington, D.C. Quote, we knew it was coming. We've prepared for this, and we shouldn't panic, end quote, Governor Jim Justice, Republican, said. He ordered all restaurants, bars, and casinos in the state to close to prevent the flu-like virus from spreading. The novel COVID-19 coronavirus has infected more than 5,800 people in the U.S. and killed more than 100. The first case in the country was confirmed in January in a Washington state man who returned from Wuhan, China, where the outbreak began. Cities and states continued to impose new restrictions to prevent infections. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio said the city is, quote, absolutely considering, end quote, a shelter-in-place order like the one issued for the San Francisco Bay Area on Monday. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 4, Wall Street struggles after Tuesday's big gains. U.S. stock index futures plunged early Wednesday in ongoing volatility as investors awaited details on the federal government's response to the coronavirus crisis. Trading was briefly halted around 5 a.m. when the losses hit 5%. On Tuesday, Wall Street bounced back from its worst day since 1987 as the White House considered a $1 trillion package to boost the economy during the coronavirus crisis. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed up by 5.2%. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ gained 4.6% and 6%, respectively. Quote, "We're going big," end quote, President Trump said of the stimulus package. The news of the stimulus plan drove down prices of the 10-year Treasury, pushing the yield of the 10-year note, which moves inversely to prices above 1%. This is according to CNBC. Number 5, former Representative Duncan Hunter sentenced to 11 months. Former Republican Representative Duncan Hunter on Tuesday was sentenced to 11 months in prison and 3 years of parole for corruption charges. Hunter at first called the allegations a, quote, witch hunt, end quote, then pleaded guilty in December to one count of conspiracy to misuse campaign funds. Prosecutors said he used more than $200,000 in campaign funds on personal expenses, including a $14,000 Italian vacation and routine items like groceries and bedding. Hunter, who resigned from Congress in January, said in the hearing that he took, quote, full responsibility for any dime that was spent by me or anyone else on my campaign, end quote. Hunter's wife, Margaret, pleaded guilty to conspiring with her husband to misuse $25,000 in campaign funds and has yet to be sentenced. This is according to CNN. Number 6, Biden gets Secret Service protection as he closes in on nomination. Former Vice President Joe Biden has started receiving Secret Service protection. The Secret Service said Tuesday. The Biden campaign requested protection for Biden last week, following an incident last month in which an anti-dairy protester stormed the stage during a Biden primary victory speech. The scare was a, quote, wake-up call, end quote, for the campaigns of Biden, who is increasingly considered the presumptive Democratic nominee, and his rival, Senator Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont. Former Secret Service agent Jonathan Wackrow told NPR. The decision on whether a candidate needs a protection is made in consultation between senior congressional officials and the Homeland Security Department. This is according to CNBC. Number 7, poll. 60% of Americans don't trust Trump on coronavirus. Only 37% of Americans trust what President Trump says about the novel coronavirus outbreak, according to new NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll released Tuesday. 60% of respondents said they had little or no trust in what Trump says. Just 46% said they believed the federal government is doing enough to contain the flu-like virus, a drop from 61% in February. More Americans disapproved of Trump's handling of the crisis by a margin of 49% to 44%. Public health officials scored highest in public trust, with 84% expressing confidence in them, followed by state and local leaders at 72%. Two-thirds of Democrats said they trust information from the news media, while Republicans overwhelmingly said they didn't trust the media. This is according to NPR. Number 8, EU leaders close borders to most outsiders. Leaders of the 26 European countries in the Schengen zone, which enables borderless movement in much of the European Union, voted on Tuesday to temporarily close their borders to people from countries outside the EU to help slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. The travel ban marked the first joint response to the pandemic in the EU. The measure also prohibits sending medical supplies to other countries. The ban, which Britain didn't plan to join, will remain in place for at least 30 days. EU leaders said they would continue the free circulation of goods within the zone. European citizens and residents returning home will be allowed in. Medical professionals and scientists also will be exempt. France and Spain also announced massive relief packages to soften the economic damage of the crisis. This is according to the New York Times and the Washington Post. Number 9. China expels U.S. journalist in retaliation for U.S. restrictions. China said Wednesday that it was revoking the media credentials of American citizens working for the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. The move, which effectively expels the journalist, came in response to U.S. restrictions on state-owned Chinese media outlets operating in the United States. China's foreign ministry said the affected journalists with credentials expiring before the end of the year have to hand over their press cards within 10 days. The back and forth media restrictions imposed by the two countries came despite a first phase deal to end the trade war between the Trump administration and Beijing. This is according to the Associated Press and CNN. Number 10, Tom Brady leave Patriots, reportedly heads to Buccaneers. Superstar quarterback Tom Brady announced Tuesday that he would be leaving the New England Patriots, which he led to 6 Super Bowl championships in his 20 years there. Quote, although my football journey will take place elsewhere, end quote, he wrote in a statement. Quote, I appreciate everything that we have achieved, end quote. Brady becomes a free agent on Wednesday after he and the team failed to agree on a new contract. Brady, 42, recently said he planned to play until he was 45, although it was not immediately clear what team he would be joining next season. Quote, while sad today, the overwhelming feeling I have is appreciation for his countless contributions to our team and community, end quote. Patriots owner Robert Kraft said. Brady is expected to sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is according to ESPN. That's 10 things you need to know today for Wednesday, March 18th, 2020. It wasn't all just about the coronavirus, but that is on a lot of people's minds today. This has been What Makes You Smarter. It's Keys Dan. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at SmarterWhat, and YouTube. Username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/Keys Dan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.